TF2 has weapons. Each class has them. You shoot the enemy with your weapon, they die, and you win. Your team congratulates you and all is right with the world. Hooray. But with a game that currently has 163 unique weapons, each class has its arsenal of weaponry to choose from, allowing for a large number of different weapon combinations and loadout potential. However, as an obvious result of such a large number of different weapons to choose from, some of them are bound to be used less than others, and in the topic of this video, tend to be quite underrated. So today, I want to take a look at every weapon in TF2 and answer the question of what TF2's most underrated weapons are. Now for this video, when I call a weapon underrated, I'm referring to a weapon that is actually good, useful, or capable of supporting your team in some way, yet goes unused just enough for many players to not realize its full potential. Similarly to my previous videos exploring TF2's most forgotten cosmetics, I'm choosing one weapon per class to keep things simple and consistent. The weapons I'm talking about today will be my own picks, so others may not see these quite as underrated as I do. But of course, if you guys have your own ideas of what weapons in TF2 are most underrated, let me know which ones you picked down in the comments. Anyway, let's get into this and answer the question of what TF2's most underrated weapons are. In a world where Scout has many great close-range primaries, it's extremely common to see Scout players using any one of his many different scatterguns. Even the Babyface's blaster, which is sometimes considered his worst primary, still has the same damage per shot as his stock scattergun, making it usable in close quarters encounters. Because of this, the Shortstop is a weapon I rarely see used properly, or used at all. Its smaller clip, less damage output, and weaker damage at close range makes it one of his less used primaries. But if you use it for even one match, you'll start to see just how underrated it actually is. Sure, it's a bit weaker at close range, but in situations where the enemy is further away and you can't safely close the distance, the Shortstop really shines. Its extra damage per pellet, tighter weapon spread, and faster firing speed make it a beast in medium to longer ranges. I mean, this thing is considered a pepper gun, so its usefulness derives from peppering the enemy. And when it comes to sentries, one of Scout's biggest counters, the Shortstop gives it a run for its money, since this gun can shred through sentries at longer distances where they can't shoot you. No, ignore that. I'm not going to deny the scattergun's overall better consistency and damage at close range compared to the Shortstop. In fact, I know that the scattergun is often better than the Shortstop overall. But maybe give the Shortstop a try, since in many situations where your targets are further away or when you're in more open areas, the Shortstop can really prove its worth. Like Scout, Soldier has so many options for what primary weapon he can use. I wouldn't say that there's a worst option for which rocket launcher to use, since they're at most capable of huge splash damage or single target elimination, or at worst, capable of giving you extra mobility on top of what Soldier is already capable of. That's where the Cow Mangler comes in, since its main downside of only dealing 20% damage to buildings makes it used less frequently than his other rocket launchers. It seems like many players ignore the multitude of upsides it has in favor of using a better rocket launcher, but the Cow Mangler has so many tricks up its sleeve that you'd be surprised to hear that it's a great choice for your loadout. Firstly, it doesn't require ammo, meaning that you'll never run out of rockets, or I guess laser projectiles, to fire off. Secondly, it also has its charge shot, using up all 4 of its projectiles in favor of shooting a single shot that deals mini crits, sets enemies on fire, and disables buildings for 4 seconds. This can really help your team push through a tough choke if the enemy engineer can turtle behind his sentry and tank your rockets with any other rocket launcher. Also, yes, I know the direct hit can more easily deal with sentries, but disabling the sentry outright instead of trying to gun it down can be a better alternative in some situations. Also, I promise I don't hate Engineer, it's just that many of the weapons in this video can counter him in one way or another. Anyway, while the Cow Mangler also can't deal random crits, or full crits for that matter, mini crits with this thing, or any other rocket launcher, are still quite powerful. The Cow Mangler itself is what I would call underrated, simply because the other rocket launchers are typically better in most situations, and are just more reliable overall. But if you're a Soldier player who likes supporting your team, not running out of ammo, and doesn't care about flashy crit rockets, then the Cow Mangler is the rocket launcher for you. If you practice with this weapon enough, you'll find that it can be on par with the stock rocket launcher in many cases. It's hard to believe that the last major update for TF2 was all the way back in 2017. It's also crazy to think that that was almost 7 years ago. Man, time really flies. And what's worse is that what I would consider Pyro's most underrated weapon was added in this same update. I'm of course talking about the Dragon's Fury. It's a shame that not many Pyro players use it, since its damage against single targets is comparable to that of a soldier and even a demo. But the consistency and reliable damage of the stock flamethrower, combined with its incredibly easy to use nature, makes the Dragon's Fury look more like the Pyro's version of the direct hit. People get the idea that you think you're better than everyone else, and you're gonna hit every single shot. Which, may not always be the case though. The Dragon's Fury by design is completely the opposite of the stock flamethrower. While it deals crazy damage and can completely shut down sentries, you know what, I'm starting to notice a pattern here. It is much more difficult to use in comparison. Well, it's not super difficult to use, but because the regular flamethrower is so easy to use, the Dragon's Fury can appear a bit more challenging since you have to actually aim your fireballs and do some real tracking, and not do whatever this is. Also, just a quick note, but I think that there might be some type of stigma in the community that bad weapons don't receive war paintable variants. Don't quote me on that, but I do remember seeing someone say that one time on a trade server, and I was honestly baffled. While you can use the Dragon Slayer Warpaint on the Dragon's Fury, it can't use any other Warpaint in the game. And this weapon doesn't even have a strange variant either, which definitely doesn't help its case. Honestly, the lack of available variants for the Dragon's Fury, combined with its need for effort to truly capitalize on success, makes it seem like using the Dragon's Fury is just too hard. I would honestly say this is why it's so underrated. It requires some level of skill to use, and not every player may possess such a skill. It's undeniable that WM1ing with stock is much easier in comparison, and sometimes can give you better results. But if I were you, I'd give the Dragon's Fury a try. It's a beast in 1v1 fights, but you'd actually have to use it to find out. Oh, and you can festivize it. Yeah, I almost forgot. Yeah. Sticky spamming is one of Demo's most common, yet effective playstyles that'll help you get work done for your team. But sticky spamming is best when done at close to medium ranges, which makes longer ranges and sticky spamming go together like peanut butter and rusty nails. But the Quickiebomb launcher, which is what I'd call Demo's most underrated weapon, helps fill in that gap. Literally, because this thing is a sticky sniping machine. The Quickiebomb launcher's shorter charge and arm time, and additional damage when charged up, make it capable of hitting enemies that are just out of your effective range, something only the lock and load was really capable of. The shorter arm time can also sometimes make damage output easier if someone is right in your face, even if each Quickiebomb will deal less damage overall. It can also destroy enemy sticky bombs, which is a nice bonus that may help in a handful of sticky situations. Actually, that wasn't really supposed to be a pun, but when writing the script, I overlooked it, so you know what, let's just move on. Now, the reason I'd call the Quickiebomb launcher Demo's most underrated weapon is because it will always live in the shadow of the Sticky Bomb launcher. And honestly, I don't disagree why this is. The Sticky Bomb launcher is such a reliable weapon that has 8 powerful explosives capable of wiping entire teams. Its only real downside is the amount of reloading you'll be doing in between your shots. The Quickiebomb launcher, with half the clip size of stock, means that you'll be reloading twice as often, making overall downtime between traps or individual Quickiebombs seem even longer. This might make the Quickiebomb launcher feel sluggish to use, and if you're charging every single Quickiebomb to maximize their damage, then the sluggishness will feel even worse. Because the Sticky Bomb launcher is more reliable in pretty much every situation, the Quickiebomb launcher will never truly be appreciated. But when your enemies are further away and closing in to spam your sticky bombs isn't safe, or even possible, then that's where the Quickiebomb launcher really shines. It's like death from above, but if above was afar instead. Wait, does that even make any sense? Heavy is a damage sponge, there's no doubt about it. The poor guy has the largest hitbox in the game, bears the brunt of most pushes, and even in the Meet the Team videos, he's literally the team's punching bag. However, he does have an item that helps him shrug off some of this impending damage a little bit easier. I've talked about the Dalokohs Bar time and time again on my channel before, but that's for good reason. This thing can really help Heavy in almost every situation, and today is what I'd consider his most underrated item. Other classes would kill for 50 extra health, so being able to bring Heavy's base up from 300 to 350 makes him even more of a threat. surviving specific damage thresholds, shrugging off extra chip damage, and just winning more 1v1s in general are all what the Dalokohs Bar helps Heavy do best. But it's time to address the sandwich-shaped elephant in the room. The sandwich's ability to bring Heavy up to full health will usually be more useful than bringing his max HP up, but only healing him for 100 HP. Even the second banana, which doesn't heal Heavy's full health, heals twice as much health as the Dalokohs Bar and even has the same recharge time as it. Man, this poor bar of chocolate has some competition. Combined with the fact that the Dalokohs Bar really seems more like a selfish pick sometimes than something that can help your team in a pinch. In cases where you need health now, which is pretty much every waking moment when you're playing Heavy, the sandwich will get you topped off reliably and without fail. The Dalokohs Bar, on the other hand, while making Heavy capable of surviving more fights, fails to initially bring him up to that point in the first place. It'll most likely always be his most underrated lunchbox item, and in the case of this video, is what I'd also consider his most underrated weapon, item, lunchtime snack, whatever you want to call it. Engineer is arguably the biggest team player when played correctly. His sentry guns can defend the objective, his dispenser can heal teammates unlimitedly, and his teleporters help get him and his team from point A to point B much more reliably and easily, assuming he doesn't do this. With the overall usefulness and benefits he provides his team comes a bit of a counter, where the engineer himself isn't very mobile. Without a Wrangler to Wrangler jump or a medic to overheal him to more safely cover large distances, the engineer is a bit limited when it comes to getting around the map safely. And this is where the Eureka effect comes into play. This thing might just be the epitome of underrated. Like seriously, being able to teleport back to spawn and to your teleporter exit on a whim whenever you want and without a real cooldown makes you capable of zipping all over the map to wherever you're needed most. Need more metal and don't have a metal pickup? Teleport to spawn and get it back in an instant. Are you in a pickle and need to get an escape route quickly? The Eureka effect has you covered. And with its lower cost to build and upgrade teleporters, this thing can also help you save metal in a pinch and help your team get back to the front lines faster in the process. Of course, this wrench isn't as effective at getting buildings up and does give you less overall metal from dispensers or metal pickups, but this is a fair trade-off for giving you unlimited mobility around the map. Now, I think this wrench is so underrated because almost all engineer players who use the Eureka effect are either ninja-neering or using it to do a quick rollout at the start of a game. They'll often just switch to another wrench after getting all of their buildings up, which in some cases might actually be the best play if you're focused on getting your buildings up quicker and more reliably. But if you give this wrench a try and use it for the whole match, you'll find that its added mobility to Engineer's base class can actually help him more often than not. So maybe give the Eureka effect a try, and help your team beyond what Engineer is already capable of. If your team needs healing, Medic's your guy. Any one of his Mediguns will help keep your team healthy and will make you an asset to every team you're on. The Medigun's Ubercharge, the Kritzkrieg's crits, the Vaccinator's damage resistances, and the Quick Fix's great single target healing capabilities all make them useful picks in almost every situation. Pair any of these Mediguns with the Crusader's crossbow, and you've got yourself a recipe for team success. But Medic does have another healing option that the majority of Medic players simply ignore. The Amputator, being Medic's most underrated weapon in my eyes, is so underused in favor of, this thing, that it's a common belief that using any other melee than the Uber Saw will put you at an overall disadvantage or make you less successful as a medic in general. Well, this might be true in comp, but I'm not going to touch that topic even with a 10-foot stick. Anyway, the Amputator actually fills a similar role to the Quick Fix's Uber, except instead of healing multiple targets by rapidly healing one target at a time, the Amputator heals all nearby teammates simultaneously, but of course at a lower rate than the Quick Fix. This can honestly make your job as medic easier in some situations, since if you're in a safe spot and your whole team needs healing, you can just right-click, let the game do your job for you, and take the next 4.2 seconds to think about how your life has led up to this moment. Then when you're done, get right back into the healing with your Medigun. The Amputator's healing taunt honestly takes a level of stress off your shoulders, since instead of worrying about healing each and every person who needs health now, you're able to heal them all at once. And if your teammates need health, they'll typically walk over to you to get some. and as soon as they step foot close enough, they'll be getting the health they need immediately. The Amputator's passive healing of 3 health per second when held out can also help you recover health quicker if you're retreating from a recent firefight, or if that one scout takes the health pack you so desperately needed. Thanks, man. Even though the Amputator does have that 20% damage penalty, it's still going to be a last resort damage option, so it'll still deal a hefty chunk of damage, even more so if it crits, which 100% will happen. But again, the Amputator is so underrated because, say it with me now, it's not the Uber Saw. And I'm just gonna say it, the Uber Saw isn't always effective because you actually need to hit an enemy with it to get that 25% Uber, which won't always occur since usually, if an enemy sees you holding the Uber Saw, they're going to run for the high hills, meaning you're gonna have to go in and engage with them with your Uber Saw, which more often than not can get you killed. The Amputator's AoE healing can help you in moments when you get overwhelmed with healing targets, and its passive health regen bonus can also help you in a pinch. Yet for as long as medics continue to use the Uber Saw, the Amputator will always be that underrated pick. So for Sniper, I'm shaking things up a bit. For each of the other classes so far, their underrated weapons have been unlockable items, which usually tend to be less used or appreciated than their stock counterparts. But for Sniper, his most underrated weapon is one that he's equipped with from the start. I'd say that his most underrated weapon is the SMG. Today's player base has access to all sorts of great unlocks like the Girardi, the plethora of backpack items, and the Cleaner's Carbine, which even though isn't the best SMG, still pairs well with the Bushwhacker, making for a deadly close-range sniper. But the stock SMG has always seemed like an outlier, even though it's always been a part of Sniper's base weaponry. The usefulness and utility of Girardi is undeniable, and any one of Sniper's backpacks provides him with some sort of passive upside. The stock SMG, though, to some, may just seem like another full auto, low damage backup weapon, which to an extent is what the SMG is. But the true capabilities of the SMG arise when you actually use it. If you're good with tracking, the SMG can output good damage in close to medium ranges where a Sniper is usually weaker. It isn't the best engagement tool, but it's a decent option if you're retreating or being chased in close quarters. And it's got a clip size of 25, meaning if you're dealing with lower health enemies that you or your team have already weakened, your margin of error is pretty large. The different backpacks and Girardi are great options for your self-sustainability and assisting or protecting your team. But sometimes you just need more gun. Because of this, the SMG, while a truly underrated pick for Sniper, can save your skin when his other options just won't cut it. As a class, Spy has a plethora of different weapons that all assist your preferred playstyles. If you're a fan of cloaking and sneaking around the map easier, you can use the L'Étranger and Cloak and Dagger. If you want to be the single most obnoxious thing to ever come out of this game's community, you can rock the Diamondback and Kunai. There are several loadout combinations that can make you the best Spy. So that begs the question of, where does the Enforcer come into play then? To me, it would have to be Spy's most underrated gun, simply because of its perceived uselessness. A 20% firing speed penalty combined with a lack of random crits can make many Spy players ignore this thing entirely, and even worse, its upsides are deemed as practically useless oftentimes. The real tragedy here is that these upsides are actually beneficial in many ways, and here's why. First, the 20% damage bonus when disguised, while a bit of a niche upside, can benefit you if your enemy's health is just low enough, and having any extra damage bonus on your revolver is nice, even if it only applies to the first shot. Second, the damage piercing function helps it counter key targets on the enemy team, including Vaccinator medics and Wrangled sentries. Your shots will still deal full damage to these targets, meaning you can easily gun them down at their most resistant, letting you keep a safer distance from more dangerous enemies. The problem with this though is that these situations won't come up in every game, meaning that for the majority of your games, the Enforcer's main upsides may not come into play all that much. The no random crit stat really doesn't matter, so I'm not even gonna bother talking about it. Oh shoot, you know what, I just did. But the 20% firing speed penalty, while seeming like a bad downside on the surface, actually has its benefits. It forces you to slow down your shots and time them better, making you actually improve your aim if you're lucky, and if you use the Enforcer enough, you'll be hitting more shots than ever before. I've been using this thing for a while now, and I swear I have better aim using this revolver compared to stock. It could be a mind game sort of thing, but I really think the slower firing speed can help you get better at your revolver aim. The Enforcer itself is underrated solely due to its primary upside not always being utilized since it's reliant on the enemy team having weapons that provide some sort of damage resistance. So in many games, the stock revolver will definitely be more reliable overall. But in games where a Vaccinator medic or engineer using a Wrangler is bringing the game to a standstill, then consider the Enforcer and enforce your authority on the battlefield. And those were what I would consider TF2's most underrated weapons. They might not all be the best choice to use in every match, but their utility and overall fun designs can actually make them quite useful in specific circumstances. I think most of us, including myself, are so caught up in using our favorite weapons and loadouts that we forget that there are, in fact, other items we can use, some of which may just be better than others in certain situations. I'm interested to see what you guys would choose as your picks of TF2's most underrated weapons. Feel free to leave a comment explaining what weapons you'd put under this category and what your favorite underrated weapons are. Thank you all for watching, I hope you all have a great day, and I'll see you guys in the next video.